o'clock. And I'm going to call the meeting to order. First, Dawn, would you do the roll call, please?
Absolutely. Also, just a note, the meeting is, the live stream has started and the meeting is being recorded. Jerry Abrahams.
Here.
Cindy Butts. Wendy Clark. Phil DeFranzo. Heidi DeWeingart.
Here.
Claudio Gualtieri. Timothy Hodges.
Here.
Kathy McKinnon.
Here.
Commissioner Mascara Bruno.
Here.
Commissioner Perez. Franklin Perry. Matt Puglisi. I see Chelsea is joining just now, so I'll come back to her. Sarah Sanders. Lisa Tepper Bates.
Here.
Greg Ugalde.
Present.
Let me go back. I think I see Phil DeFonso.
Here. Yes.
Thank you, Phil. Chelsea Ross.
Present.
Franklin Perry.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Perez. Anyone else who joined in the last couple seconds that I may have already called your name? Okay, we do have a quorum in attendance for the meeting.
Thank you, Dawn. Could you go ahead and do the public comments?
Of course. This is the only opportunity on the agenda for the public to provide comments. If you would like to provide a comment, please unmute yourself and state your name, or if you're in the room, let us know. To ensure that everyone has the opportunity, comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Hearing no comments, the public comment period is now ended. Commissioner?
Thank you. Next on the agenda is the report from our Executive Director, CEO.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody. You might notice that I'm not in the room today. I come to you from Cambridge, Massachusetts, where I am getting ready to graduate from the Achieving Excellence program. Just want to remind the board about your investment in my leadership skills and my education and growth as a leader, and want to thank you for your support. It's been an incredible learning experience, training in frameworks and methodologies for leadership development, solving problems, innovation, etc. And so I'm getting ready to graduate from that program. I'm hoping to bring back some ideas from that program for implementation, and as well as a challenge that I committed to solving. Just as a reminder, my challenge was around solving, or at least helping to alleviate issues around wealth building for Black and Brown first-time home buyers. And so there are a couple of ideas, initiatives that we've inserted in our goals for 2024 to reflect the work that I've done in the last year, both in the program as well as back at home with my team. So I wanted to make sure you got that update. In addition to that, I know this was discussed at Finance Committee, but in response to the incident that happened at the last board meeting, we've worked quickly to try to come up with a solution that would provide comfort to board members and to us about incidents like that not occurring, or trying to minimize the risk of such incidents, as well as continuing to provide the transparency around our board meetings. And so we've consulted with attorneys at the Freedom of Information Commission, as well as looked at other agencies to see what best practices are around the state. And I'm happy to say that we have struck upon a solution that I think will meet our needs. So you may have noticed that this is being live streamed on YouTube, and we do intend to post the transcript on our website as we have done previously. In terms of the public comment portion of the meeting, we are posting a notice on our website along with the agenda that asks any members of the public to contact us if they would like to make comment. And we will be asking them for their information prior to providing them the Zoom link. This is something that other agencies are doing and has been blessed by the, I don't know if I could use that word, but certainly has been approved by the attorneys we've consulted with. So we believe we have a reasonable solution. It should allow us to continue to provide the public the ability to comment and attend. Everybody else can watch, can watch the live stream. So with that, I will turn it back over to you, Commissioner, and let me know if you have any comments.
Thank you. Any questions from Anthony or comments? Well, congratulations. You're almost done. 18 months. I know you did put a lot of work in addition to your work day to day, so congratulations.
Thank you. Thanks for your support.
Next, we have a mortgage committee. We have an item that needs to take action, and Pat is going to present that resolution.
Okay, good morning, everybody. In mortgage committee on Tuesday, Ann Connors presented a request for financing for Veterans Terrace 3 in East Hartford. The request was for a construction to perm loan of up to $17,238,000 in the form of two separate notes. The construction note of approximately $8,965,000 with a 24-month interest-only term and a rate of up to 7.4%, and a permanent loan of approximately $8,273,000 at a rate of up to 6.51%. That'll be interest only for the 24-month construction period, and then fully amortizing over its remaining term of 35 years. This project is the third and final phase of the preservation of 150 affordable units that were previously owned by the East Hartford Housing Authority. The first phase with 45 units is complete and fully occupied at this point. The 54-unit second phase is currently being leased up, and the final phase will result in 51 brand new units. All 51 of those units will remain affordable, with 30 units dedicated to households at or below 25% of area median income. 12 of the units will be for households that are between 25% and 50% of area median income, and 9 of the units will be for households at or below 60% of area median income. The scope of the work for this particular phase includes construction of the community building and all the site work necessary to tie all 3 phases together. The request was approved unanimously. Any questions?
Thank you. Pat, can I have a motion to approve the resolution presented by Pat?
So moved.
Thank you, Greg. Can I have a second?
I'll second Chelsea.
Thank you, Chelsea. Any comments or questions? Okay, hearing none. Tom, could you do roll call, please?
Of course. Jerry Abrahams.
Aye.
Cindy Butts.
Yes.
Wendy Clark.
Yes.
Phil DeFranzo.
Yes, sorry about that. I was on mute.
No problem. Thank you. Heidi DeWeingart. Sorry, Heidi, I didn't hear you. I'll come back. Claudio Gualtieri. Timothy Hodges.
Yes.
Kathy McKinnon.
Aye.
Commissioner Mosquera Bruno.
Yes.
Commissioner Perez.
Yes.
Franklin Perry.
Yes.
Matt
Okay,
Pugliese.
Dan, I'm back. Okay, Dan, I'm back.
I'm sorry. Um, I'm sorry. Matt Puglisi, Chelsea Ross,
Yes.
Sarah Sanders, Lisa Tepper Bates,
Aye.
Greg Ugalde.
Aye.
This is Heidi. Aye.
Thank you, Heidi. The vote passes unanimously.
Thank you, Dawn. Motion carries. Next on the agenda is a strategic plan.
Yes.
Andy?
Thank you. Good morning again. Last month we provided you a draft of our 4-year strategic plan. I just wanted to spend a little bit of time this morning answering any questions you may have, or maybe revisiting some of the areas around our plans for the next 4 years. So you may have noticed that it is now a 4-year plan as opposed to a 3-year plan. Part of that is the realization that planning takes a lot of work. It's well worth the effort, but it can also distract from the operationalizing of a lot of these efforts. And to be honest, I think there might be a period of time this time that we would spend sort of building on how we might operationalize some of these efforts. So I know in the partnerships and relationship building area, we've talked about convening a small working group that would, look at some of the ways that CHFA can bring its voice, and convening and other activities around affordable housing, coalition building, or communication in the state. So we've talked a little bit about, kind of doing some of that initial work in the first year. So again, looking around us, it appears that, the average is somewhere between 3 and 5 years. 4 years, we're in the ballpark. So again, sort of we thought about this work in terms of 4 wheels or 4 areas of focus. So there's relationship building, partnerships, organizational improvements, innovation, as well as financial and operational management. So I'll quickly walk us through each of these areas of focus. Dawn. So some of these strategies have been driven by work that we're currently doing that we believe could be taken further under the new plan. And some of it is fairly new in terms of, needs that we can see that we will need to try to meet in the next 3 or 4 years. So, for example, we are going to be talking to you today about single-family financing, and the one, Phil had requested a presentation about our ability to leverage other resources to meet our capital needs in the single-family space, and so we're going to be talking about that today. And so that then starts the clock on us trying to seek out or implement executions for mortgage financing that will balance, our ability to be responsive, to prioritize the resource allocation, as well as respond to different markets. Most recently, in the last month, you did approve setting aside a higher portion of our net income towards the Opportunity Fund, with the idea that it would meet, the sub-strategy under strategy number 1, where we would be looking for ways to apply our net income more deeply to the mission. So we do have a couple of ideas about how we might utilize those resources, and we will be seeking your feedback and approval in the coming months. Next slide, please. Under innovation, we have, become aware more recent, well, I don't know about recently, but certainly more recently since COVID, we've become more attuned to the cost of building affordable housing and how big of an impediment increasing costs, both in construction and development as well as operations, are to the goal we have of creating more units. And so we're going to be looking at that. It's going to be something that we really haven't started working on yet. We are exploring some ideas in this space, but something that we would want to get more comfortable with in the strategic plan. Leveraging other funding partners is something that we've done before. We want to do more, as well as diversify the types of support and types of partners that we are engaging with. Strategy number 3 speaks a little bit to the program that I'm currently in, Achieving Excellence. One of these around sustaining homeownership during periods of difficulty really speaks to the fact that My Home CT, which was a foreclosure prevention program, has largely ended. The federal dollars have all been committed, and we're going to be looking at state programs to fill the gap where possible and to find ways to make the state program more effective. Next. Organizational improvement. Our people are where it's at. I mean, we really don't have anything if we don't have the staff who are committed and experienced and have the tools that they need to do their jobs. And we're going to be working on supporting them and growing their capacity to deliver and to support the work that we do every day. Next. Relationship building and partnerships. Talked a little bit about this in the beginning, but we are going to be convening a working group that will allow us to look at ways that CHFA can contribute more deeply to assisting stakeholders in various capacities around Connecticut with their affordable housing needs. And one of the questions we're going to be grappling with is, how do we then assess the success of those measures, which broadly, I think, speaks to one of the questions we've been grappling with internally is, how do we measure our impact? I think you may be aware that in the last strategic plan, we were delivering dashboards on a quarterly basis that at a very high level had certain targets and would kind of give you a status update as to our ability to meet those targets or exceed those targets. We're going to continue to do that sort of reporting, but we'd like to also look at what sorts of measures make sense. We do think it's important for us to be accountable and to have targets in mind that we would seek to meet or exceed. But are there ways that we could be measuring the impact of our work that could either inform our efforts and or make adjustments in our strategies going forward? So we're looking at that. We expect to have something to you at the end of the first quarter, which I would love your feedback on, and we could make adjustments going forward based on your input. So very quickly, I'm going to run through, I know I'm taking a little bit of time here, but I'd like to run through the goals for 2024. Yes, thank you. If you notice, there are measurements in each of these, and many of these goals for 2024. There are ambitious, and I think it's important for us to understand that it's important to be ambitious. It's important to really aim for almost being at the sort of threshold of saying, well, am I really going to be able to deliver this or not? But if we're not ambitious, then I don't think we're doing everything we can to fulfill our mission and to get as much affordable housing built as possible. So you may wonder how we're going to get all of these things done. I think it is our goal to make as much progress on these as possible. There is a possibility that if we are thrown a curveball, like if there's a new program or something that happens as a result of, environments, conditions outside of our control, that, things may have to shift or adjust, resources may have to be adjusted, prioritized and otherwise, but we've worked really hard to develop these goals, these initiatives that are trying to meet the strategic plan objectives, and we believe that they reflect the priorities of our organization, of our board, of the state, the administration, as well as the need that's out there. I welcome any feedback you have, or I respectfully request your approval of the new strategic plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Nandini. Questions, comments?
Commissioner, the only question, first off, thank you to Nandini and the whole team for the very hard work on this. I just want to make sure that we are all focused on the fact that I'm afraid, continue to lose ground with regard to affordable housing in the state. And that's not the fault of CHFA, but we are charged uniquely with responding and helping to alleviate the lack of low and moderate income affordable housing. So I think it's really important that we are centrally focused on the urgency. Strategic plans can all look a lot alike in terms of organizational goals and how we think about progression. But I just wanted to say out loud that that is something that I'm afraid this situation has gotten worse in the last decade, not better, despite a lot of hard work. So my hope is that that is central in this discussion. And the way that we can articulate that and how we can articulate that is, I think, really an important piece of all of these work streams. So thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Cindy?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, as we all know, it's hard to build affordable housing if we can't build it affordably. And having a deed restriction ever beyond 30 years or what may be federally required creates its own opportunity to drive up the cost to build. And anytime we have the opportunity to do 30 years instead of 40, we can create more affordable housing or make the project more likely.
Thank you, Cindy. Commissioner Perez?
I totally agree with what Lisa mentioned, even though what I'm about to say may sound like I'm deviating a little bit. I agree that our main goal, because that's what we're created for, was to make sure we make affordable housing available, and more specifically to the low moderate income market. But the point I want to emphasize is that that market is a lot more than simply public housing, or and we tend to put a lot of money and energy and effort into that particular area, and workforce housing is as much as part of the affordable part. For a nurse or police officers making $50,000 a year on the high side, to be able to, they cannot afford $2,500 of rent a month, and they cannot afford a $3,000 mortgage a month. So I just want to make sure that within that scope, that we, try to be sensitive and balance and that there's more than one type of particular, low, moderate income type of housing that we should be focusing on, because we tend to sometimes focus more on the housing authority because they come to us with a crisis, and if we don't help them, those units will be lost, right? And I'm not saying that that happens from time to time, but since you asked for input, that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other comments or questions? And just a comment to your point, Commissioner Perez, I think that with the Bill for CT, the new program, where we are also incentivizing the workforce development with our private partners, is gonna have an impact, which we took it as an urgency, and we have a pretty robust pipeline that we're working through. 2 projects has already been closed, which was really expeditious, like in 3 months after having the resources, we're closing those, and we're about to close on the last one, right?
We are.
So, and those gonna go to start the construction right away. So I think the staff knows that it is an urgent need that we try to do every type of housing, actually, and it's going to come to the affordable, to the workforce, and also to homeownership. We're gonna, the departments working with CHFA, we're gonna be looking at ways to also incentivize more supply for homeownership.
I totally agree with you, Commissioner, and I commend the staff and your leadership on that. However, as you heard, the CT home money, the federal money, part of it is run out. So that's why I'm saying, in general, as a strategy, I was not being critical or anything like that on what we've been doing, is we should keep in mind that there's more than one component. There's more than simply public housing or Section 8 vouchers. There's also the workforce, which I'm not saying that people don't know that, but since we're talking about strategy and people are going to go back and look at what was the intent of the board, right? I just wanted to make sure that on the record was, I agree totally with what Lisa stated. I has expanding on what she stated.
Absolutely. Thank you. Tim?
Yeah, just really quickly, first of all, Nandini, congratulations to you and to the team on putting together the plan. To your point earlier, this isn't easy work. So the fact that you've spent a lot of time on it and put it together is commendable. The only thing that I want to offer is, and I as I think about it more and more, there are a lot of people who are sitting around this table who are experts in different areas. There's a lot of great knowledge here, people who are from different organizations who can be helpful. So to the extent that board members can be useful, please, well, I don't want to speak for every board member, but I want to say, utilize me, right? I'm not suggesting that I could make every meeting or should, but to the extent that we can be of assistance, I think you should reach out to us and allow us to give you some guidance from our perspective in terms of our industries, and hopefully that'll be helpful as you move forward.
Thank you, Tim.
Greg?
Yeah, I'd like to echo what Tim said. I think it was well said. And also, I think that the plan is well put together because it does allow us to collaborate with others, to utilize the board, and it recognizes that we need to bring in disciplines across the board. It can't be any one entity or any one group that's going to solve affordable housing in this state. It's a deep problem, and if we all can try to come up with as much as possible to address it, we might be able to scratch the surface. So I think this is a very well put together plan.
Thank you, Greg. All right, so this is a resolution, so I'm gonna ask if I can have a motion to approve the strategic plan presented by Nancy.
Motion to approve.
Have a second?
I'll second.
Matt. Any other, thank you, Matt. Any other comments or questions before Dawn does the roll call? All right, Dawn, please.
Of course. Jerry Abrahams.
Aye.
Cindy Butts.
Yes.
Wendy Clark. Wendy, I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. Thank you. Phil DeFranzo.
Yes.
Thank you. Heidi, I don't know if you can respond. I have found out that Heidi is driving, and so responding may not be in the cards for you right now, but if it is, just jump in whenever you can. Claudio Gualtieri. Timothy Hodges.
Yes.
Catherine McKinnon.
Aye.
Commissioner Mascara Bruno.
Yes.
Commissioner Perez.
Yes.
Franklin Perry.
Yes.
Matt Puglisi.
Yes.
Chelsea Ross.
Yes.
Sarah Sanders. Lisa Tepper Bates.
Aye.
Greg Galde.
Aye.
Vote passes unanimously.
Motion approved. Thank you, Dawn. The next item on the agenda is a presentation of the compensation study. And the consultant is not here yet, so I'm gonna move to ask Hazim to do his presentation, the refresher. Hazim?
Sure. Good morning, everybody. So what I'm going to do this morning is part of it is to provide everyone a refresher, but also part of it is to answer a question that Phil raised at the last Finance Committee. So let's just jump right into it. Next page, please. So we will start off with just the high-level overview about how we finance our homeownership loans. And when we say homeownership loans, it includes whole loans and loans that are put into mortgage-backed securities. So once we have the collateral, we then have to figure out how we are going to permanently finance the loans that we purchase. So we rely primarily on tax-exempt bonds, and that's because tax-exempt bonds provide us with the lowest cost of funds. And through the net difference between what we make from the collateral and what we pay after we issue the bonds, we would generate the necessary annuity, and that makes the spread. And from time to time, I will use that spread as interest margin. We will utilize taxable bonds if the tax-exempt capacity runs out. And that's because every year, each state is provided a capacity based on certain regulation by the Fed. So for Connecticut, based on its per capita, we get close to about 400 million a year. And from there, based on the statute and the allocation made by OPM, we generally will get in excess of 300 million. So when we make interest margin, we will use that interest margin to pay for program expenses, including lender compensation. We'll pay for bond cost of issuance because you do need to pay the parties involved to issue the bonds. And of course, once we have everything else paid, we do use it to run CHFA operations. So generally speaking, the average life of our loan, of our first-time homebuyer loans, is between 8 and 10 years. So let's go to the next page. So one of the questions that Phil raised during the last committee meeting was, as we put loans into mortgage-backed securities, have we considered selling the security in the open market instead of issuing debt? And the theory there is it better to earn income upfront versus relying on an annuity stream? So just before I jump into the simple chart that I have created for you, This whole concept about the ability to sell only came after CHFA embraced the use of mortgage-backed securities. Just for context, about 20 years ago, we were primarily relying on whole loans, meaning that we would just buy loan receivables from our lenders and put it on our books. So that was 20 years ago. 10 years ago, we were still utilizing whole loans about 90%, and then only 10% was mortgage-backed securities. 5 years ago, we're now primarily relying on mortgage-backed securities around 90%, and whole loans is only 10%. And the reason why there's this conversion from whole loans to mortgage-backed security is because, number one, it provides additional protection to the holder, because mortgage-backed security is guaranteed by the federal government or by the sponsored enterprise by the federal government. But for whole loans, you do need to deal with delinquency, you do need to deal with foreclosure and the loss mid when you try to dispose the property. And the other thing too is mortgage-backed security, it does have its own market. So it provides liquidity. So at any given time, you can get a price of what you own for that mortgage-backed security and trade it. Unlike whole loans, where you do need to find a sophisticated investor, or you have to find a broker to get a price for that loan. So now here we are, and what you have in front of you is just a comparison of what transpired between the week of, in my case, I use February 1 and February 8. So at the time, our offering rate was 6 1/8 for government insured loans. So when we say government, it means loans that have been insured, the mortgage insurer is being provided by FHA, VA, or RD, which is the USDA. And then we were offering 6.5% for conventional. That means loans that are either backed by the private mortgage insurance, or they were able to put up 20% of equity. So that's the rate differential. And at the time, for rates of 6 1/8 and rates of 6.5, we can put them into a mortgage-backed security with a coupon of 5.5%. There's a reason why there's a rate differential there, but primarily it's because we have to pay for the guarantee fee that's required by the entity that's securing the mortgage-backed securities, along with the requirement to pay for servicing. Then the next thing that, the first thing that we have to pay whenever that we close a loan and we buy a loan from a lender is we have to pay them for their work. If the board recollect, a few years ago, we did change our lender compensation table, where we were trying to incentivize the time of delivery from reservation to closing. And that's because, number one, we want to make sure that the home buyer is able to close as quickly as possible. And number two, we also receive feedback from lenders that time is money. So they do want to close as soon as possible. And number three, for CHFA, is because we also was dealing with interest rate. So we were trying to reduce and mitigate our interest rate risk. So the table stipulates that if a lender delivers a loan 75 days or earlier from the date of reservation, they will receive 2.5%. If they deliver between the day of 76 to 90 days, they will get 1.7 they will get 2%. And then from 91 days to 120 days, they will get 1.75. And then between 121 days to 150 days, they will get 1.5%. So there is a sliding scale where the longer it takes, then they will get less. But if they do deliver quickly, they will get the 2.5 points. We did receive questions at the time about how we set those compensation, and then I responded that the compensation that we established was in line with the market. So I'm showing that 225, so it's just in between of the 2.5 points and the 2 points. So in effect, loans generally will be delivered between those 2 days, 75 days and then 90 days. And then the next thing is just to compare between if we put it into a bond or if we sell it outright. So to make it simple, we'll just jump to all the way to the right, where we look at the MBS at the time on February 1 and February 8. If say that we did have a security at 5.5, and that this is based, the information is from Bloomberg for a delivery on April of 24. So effectively delivery of the loan within 60 days, then an investor is willing to pay for February 1 par spot 75. That's how they would price it. So when you see 100.00, it means that you essentially get nothing. But if you see 0.75, it's just trying to say that you're going to get 75 basis points off the face value of the security. But on February 8, the price went down to 99.75. So effectively, if you try to sell it, instead of you getting even breaking even, you actually will have to eat 25 basis points of the price. So that's the reason why it's showing a net of 150 and 250 is because if you sell it, the difference is you first only either get, you have to pay 25 basis points if it's on February 8 or February 1, you get 75, but you still have to pay lender compensation of 2.25. In the case of bond, we do get indications from our financial advisor, and at the time, the bond yield was 4.3 and 4.5 between February 1 and February 8. And then we do need to pay cost of issuance, and for single-family bonds, it's generally around 1%. And then I was just using something very conservative, which is a 5 years average life. So effectively, based on the straight line basis, we are amortizing at 20 basis points a year. So at the end of 5 years, if we close the deal on February 1, we would have made 2.75 at the end of 5 years. We totally recognize that when you deal with annuity, you do need to pay compensation, lender compensation upfront, so you'll be out of the money, but you will make it over time. Therefore, at the end of 5 years, you make 275 on February 1 or potentially 175 on February 8. Now, keep in mind, this is based on a 5-year average life. And the previous slide, I did mention that the average life of our loans is 8 and 10. So effectively speaking, the amount of net that we get through a bond financing will just continue to grow as the loan remains on our books. Next slide, please. So this is just a chart for the GDP.
But can
oh yeah, go ahead.
But so you're like, if you did a Ginnie bond and you sold your 6.25 into a 5.5, you're still getting that spread minus your G fee, just like you would be on a regular. It's not like you're just making 100.75. You're getting that spread for the life of that loan.
No, when we sell it, we're done.
Well, if you sold a Ginnie, if you pooled a bond into a Ginnie security,
right,
if you Ginnie approved, you would maintain the servicing and you would get the spread between what the interest rate is and what the bond is that you sold it into. You don't just make 100.75.
Right. So there's two things. So just let me clarify for the board. So this is about selling the security, and the question that Phil is raising is about the servicing premium, or the servicing rights, I should say. In the secondary market is called MSR, the master servicing rights.
Right.
So in our case, we are not an approved Genie service.
Okay.
So when we sell, we're done. Now, having said that, the arrangement that we currently have with Idaho, we do retain some servicing because when we entered into a contract with them, we did engage and they did offer sharing a portion of the servicing. So for the engagement that we currently have with Idaho, we do retain some. But
Got
this whole exercise, when I was trying to present it, was just trying to compare without taking into consideration the servicing right, which is in itself a different animal.
I don't want to on that, and I don't want to. I know this isn't the point of the analysis on as to what happens to the mortgage servicing rights, but I would assume so when we sell the mortgage to Phil's point, the MSRs have a lot of value, right? And so, and I get we're not an approved Ginnie Mae servicer, although that's kind of a separate question, and maybe it's a separate discussion is why don't we obviously have the ability to become one. They're much smaller institutions that have that, so that's a separate question for maybe a later day. But I'm sure you've looked at that. But I would assume that when we sell essentially, so we sell if we sell the mortgage-backed security and we then sell the MSRs, I assume that do we get a upfront fee from Idaho that services from our behalf for that, or do they then just basically give us a stream on the MSRs?
We get with Idaho, we get in streams.
We get so okay, yeah, okay, all right.
So effectively, we have an annuity. So we have two kinds of annuities going on. One is an annuity on the bond, and the other one is annuity on the MSR.
Right. Okay. And I guess for a later date, I don't want to take any more of the board's time today, but if you could, if at a later date we could have just some discussion on why we don't just do our own MBS servicing at some point.
Understood. Okay. So this is just trying to show the graph and the pricing of a 5.5 coupon for April delivery between January 16 of this year and February 12. So this is for Ginnie Mae. And then the next page is showing for the UMBS. So for those who are unfamiliar what UMBS means Uniform Mortgage-Backed Securities. This was this is the new way of security being priced in the market. A few years ago, there was an intent to combine both Fannie Mae mortgage-backed security and Freddie Mac because there was a pricing differential between the two. So this is the outcome of the whole exercise. Next page. So this is the one that between those two slides and what we do is the crux of it. So what's happening right now is there's a inverse relationship between treasury rate and mortgage-backed securities. So as treasury rates rise, typically it's the 10-year. So that's generally is the proxy being used by the mortgage market. The price of the MBS will go down. So just to give you an example, not too long ago, July 31st of 2020, the 10-year treasury was stated at 0.53%. Okay, and the security, if the 5.5 was available, would have priced at 110.4. So effectively speaking, if we had a security back in 2020, we sell it, somebody is willing to pay us 10% based on the notional amount. Fast forward August 31 of 2022, treasury rate went up to 3.2% and the price went down to 102.2%. So just within 2 years, the value dropped by 8%, not 8 basis points, not 80 basis points, 800 basis points. So next page. So here's the conclusion. So when it comes to bond financing, we believe that it provides the following benefits. One is income predictability, because the moment when you have an annuity, you do know what's coming in, because you expect that the loan will behave based on the average life. The second point is it extracts the maximum value from that average life. So when you sell something, like say that if we decide to sell, whether it's the mortgage-backed security, servicing rights, we're making assumptions. The assumptions can be right, the assumptions can be off. If the assumptions will be off, you either pay too much or you receive too little, one way or the other. So when you put it into a bond, it gives us more flexibility to ensure that we're able to extract the maximum value from the collateral. And then when it comes to the MBS, the benefit would be when you sell it, you make it up, like you have that income, but it's one and done. You get it? You don't have any upfront cost, or I would say a lower upfront cost, just because the fact that the liquid is the market is liquid. It has less restrictions than bonds. As you know, when you sell Texas and bonds, there's all these restrictions about what you can and what you cannot do. You have to comply with Section 142. No, in the case of MRB, it would be Section 143. And then you have the ability to enter into a forward delivery contract, which is the TBA. We can do forward delivery with bonds, but it is very risky. And then generally, when you enter into a forward with a bond, you typically will attach a swap. But based on the current pricing, we continue to use bond financing because it provides the best value for MBSA. In conclusion, my own conclusion, and then this is also part of the strategic plan. We, just like when I was giving the history lesson about us 20 years ago, we were using whole loans, and then over time we migrated over to MBS. We do believe that there's in fact value selling mortgage-backed security in the open market, because of the fact that it does open up other ways for us to serve residents of the state, such as pursuing non-first-time homebuyer program, or even a refi product, and so on and so forth. So we are looking into it to see if the vehicle would give us those advantages. Therefore, we then can utilize those vehicles for us to meet our strategic plan. So I'll be happy to answer any questions the board may have at this time.
Thank you, Hassan.
That was great.
Any questions, comments? All right, thank you, Hassan.
Thank you.
Just one thing real quick too. I thought Jerry had a great point. If we could even have that little bit of follow-up, I'm so glad Phil asked this question.
I hope Phil won't ask any more questions.
All right. Any other comment before we move on? And Phil, keep asking questions. Awesome, great. Thank you, Hassan.
Thank you.
Nandini, could you?
Yes. Thank you. Good morning again. Trying to respect the board's time, and we're going to keep this moving. So we undertook a compensation study in May of last year. We retained Korn Ferry, very well-known compensation consultant. And we've been working with them collaboratively over the last 8 months or so. More recently, we've been working with them as well as the Personnel Committee to evaluate the recommendations. So just to give you a really brief background, organizations regularly perform compensation studies. The last one CHFA did was back in 2014. So it's been almost 10 years. And it's important for organizations like CHFA and others to ensure that our pay structure is consistent, equitable. The study really was trying to assess the health of our compensation structure, ensure that jobs are paid appropriately based on the responsibilities of the position, that there's consistency, equity. And that it's competitive. We've had a significant amount of turnover the last couple of years, mostly because of retirements. Career professionals who've been at CHFA for years and years, retired because of changes in CBAC and things like that, agreements at the state level. And so we've had to deal with a number of turnover, a lot of succession planning, and bringing people into the organization often, where we've had to, train people. This is housing finance is the most sophisticated kind of municipal finance. And it's been hard to recruit in certain areas, especially with the technical expertise that's needed to perform many of the jobs at the authority, in the business units, and certain positions have been hard to recruit. So it's important for us to compensate people fairly. It's important for us to grow our talent within our organization and be nimble. We've been called upon to run programs for the state, and we've been able to respond because we have the sophistication in-house, and we want to continue to have that potential and continue that. So that's just my quick 2-minute introduction. Miriam Michaels is with us. She's a principal in the DC office of Korn Ferry. She's been doing this for a long time. She's very experienced. She's worked with a number of different kinds of organizations. Miriam, if you could just take a few minutes and go over a very high-level executive summary. And then when you're done, I will talk a little bit about the impact to the organization. Thank you.
Thank you, Nandini. Thank you. Great to be here today. As Nandini mentioned, we were retained by the organization to do a comprehensive compensation study. And, most of the time, a triannual review is sufficient. It'd been a long time since the organization had done a deep dive in their compensation programs, as well as looking at how their jobs and roles are leveled. So it was overdue. And we're also finding that organizations, because of a lot of things that were just mentioned in terms of, attracting or retaining talent, finding that they have to do it more often to be able to make sure they keep pace with the market. So what our objectives we're looking at, again, jobs and roles, understanding how the organization works, what are the different complexities of the jobs in order to be able to look at the external market, and also making sure that career paths are clearly identified. That's one of the things that kind of gets diluted over time, and going back and just looking at, what are expectations at each level and how people can grow and learn, because that's also something that individuals are looking for as they're coming into organizations. So it's not only competitive pay, but also opportunities for growth and development. So that was also part of our mandate and our work and our partnership as well. And then also making sure your pay philosophy is still, sufficient and aligned with what you need to do from a strategic perspective. So we spent a lot of time talking to executive leadership to understand what are just some of the different things and initiatives that the organization has to do, and how that aligns with the pay philosophy and the culture of the organization. As we think about recommendations, summary, organizationally, CHFA has done a good job of managing the pay. So you're, with the program you currently have, the salary administration and all pay programs have been effectively managed. On average, you're aligned with the market median, what we call the 50th percentile. But then when you add in and compare the market, which also offers incentive programs, the organization becomes less competitive, because your competitor, your peers are aligning both base pay, but also offering a variable pay program in either in a bonus or an incentive. Your benefits for the organization are very well positioned. They're competitive relative to the market, and they're sufficient in terms of providing health and welfare programs for their employee and their families. That's very high level in terms of summary. So in terms of the current salary administration practice for CHFA, we've established new ranges and new base pay ranges, similar to what you currently have. We restructured it a little bit to, again, bring it a little bit more up to date, since it's been over 10 years since that structure has looked at, and obviously jobs and roles have changed. We recommend a higher target competitive position, ideally aligned with the 75th percentile, since the organization does lack a formal incentive plan. So being at that upper quartile is needed to remain competitive and to be able to bring in the talent you need, but also keep the talent that you have. There's also a uniqueness, as Nanthani mentioned, skill sets in terms of specialized skills, complexity of roles. You know, we found that some roles, you know, what were much higher in terms of some of the different experience and background, especially private sector experience that's needed. So that's also a rationale for having a higher pay position for the organization. And then finally, that formal pay philosophy should be defined, and we're helping the organization define that and ensuring that it does cover all bases of total compensation, both things that are tangible as well as intangible. And again, some of that career development we find is very important from an employee value proposition. Next slide. This goes just very high level into the methodology we use. I won't spend too much time here, but just a comfort level that we did have, you know, it's a very sound methodology. We're breaking down jobs and roles by the knowledge required, the problem solving required, and ultimately accountability. So this really helps, especially where there's, you know, different job titles across different organizations. This really gets to the core of a job. So we can really do an accurate comparison, both internally as well as externally to the market. So this is one of our you know, really unique methodologies that we have as an organization that we bring to our clients. Next slide. And this breaks it down. And as you can see here, it helps to create those levels. So within each job family, you can start really looking at different levels of work. And then those are very clearly defined. And that's, again, an important piece for career pathing, that those levels are defined and what are the expectations as you grow and learn, even within your own role or a role that you may be interested in from a promotional perspective or across the organization as well. Next slide. And then this is ultimately what resulted in 12 job groups. You know, you currently have 13. We felt, you know, that 12 was sufficient, and these are the different levels. We don't include the CEO obviously here, but we start with executive level positions and then progress throughout the organization as directors, managers, professional specialists, and then coordinators in the organization. Right. Our market analysis approach is very comprehensive. We're looking at peers that are similar in you know, your industry, your sector. You know, there's lots of great information out there. We have our own database, Korn Ferry does, but also we want to make sure we're representing, for example, HFAs. There's a survey that is done that we did utilize to be able to get accurate comparison to those organizations. We again used our job size approach for that. We made sure we aged everything appropriately, and we look at different data points to be able to do an assessment of where the organization should be. And this gives you an idea of where, you know, we run a regression analysis to compare the organization to the different market data points. And you'll see here the circles represent different positions within CHFA. We wanted to make sure we both look at base salary as well as total cash. Because as I mentioned earlier, organizations are offering incentive bonus. We want to get that perspective for the organization to be able to do that assessment accurately. And as you can see here, in some areas, you are closer aligned to the 50th percentile. You progress up a little bit further for some positions. But again, you know, setting that pay philosophy at that upper quartile is definitely recommended to maintain and keep pace with the market. All right. So our recommendation, again, aligned to the strategy, make sure that everything from a philosophy perspective is appropriate, and you know, you're empowering the organization as well as employees. Again, externally and internally competitive. You're going to find that many individuals have opportunities and seek out opportunities. So enhancing and creating the structure for the organization is needed. So, you know, again, ideally paying and, you know, positioning the organization at that upper quartile. Over time, individuals can grow and learn and have more earning potential. and then enhance that pay through, you know, either the base pay program or consider some sort of incentive program in the future as well, to align more with the peers. If it's, you know, again, strategically, culturally, and you're confident you can create an incentive plan with KPIs that are, you know, clearly able to measure on an annual basis. And then the next slide. We're very confident that this is a very important initiative for the organization, but we're confident we've looked at like positions across, you know, peer groups that are similar. It's also an opportunity to create transparency in how pay works. So the organization is working on a change management program to ensure transparency and understanding of the new program, which enhances career development. Also, you know, really confirms the talent management program across the organization, and also enhances the performance aspect of the organization and how employees have conversations with their managers and how they can think about their career. So this is all in alignment with our study and enhancing all of these different things. And then final thoughts, you know, again, maintaining that formal comp philosophy will allow you to attract and retain your talent. It's also motivational and improves performance. You know, the organization is investing in their employees. So this is a very important process, and, you know, really enhances the organization's reputation as best in class. We also want to make sure it's from a pay equity perspective, that it's competitive and fair. So that's something that we also ensure. And it acknowledge that, you know, their employees are valued, and it communicates that hard work and productivity are also rewarded as part of our philosophy, part of the organization's philosophy. So that's what we have, and we're very happy to work in partnership with CHFA, and look forward to enhancing and communicating this over the next few months. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marian. Any questions from the board members? Commissioner Perez?
I think this is a great idea, and I like studies like this. But I would like if Marianne can expand more on the comment that she made about that our benefits are competitive, because I will argue that our benefits are better than the industry. And let me give you a little background. I come from the private industry, and I took almost a 50% pay cut once you included my incentives to take this job. But I have a pension, I have medical that was much, much more affordable than ever in any private job. And the work balance life is much more favorable in state government than it is in private industry. So considering that, I would like you to spend more on your comment that our benefits are competitive and not necessarily actually better than the average in private industry.
And they are at that upper end of the market. So I would say, yes, they are competitive, and they're, I wouldn't say they're rich, but they're very well positioned for the organization. And when we look at total remuneration, we also consider that when we were setting the pay philosophy, we also considered, you know, my job is to ensure that you're not getting excess. So, but I think it's, you know, adding up all the sum of the parts, which is, you know, remember, there is no incentive plan, so there's that missing component. So, but with pay, base pay, as well as benefits, the organization is be very well positioned with the recommendations we're making.
Right, but every employee that takes a job in state government knows there's no incentive, and they know that there are other attractions. And I'm not against it. Look, I've done so through CSBS, which is this Conference of State Bank Supervisor, which is an independent entity because the state would not allow me to do the study. We did do a study of Department of Banking, right? We've done the commissioner,
right.
And not only Connecticut but other, and compare it to other industry. And obviously, we can't compare ourselves to the real senior level positions at the banks because the pay is, you know, sometimes 5-7 times difference.
Mm-hmm.
But there were some conclusions about that below the management level. You know, we're very competitive once you took into account the quality of life and the pension and the healthcare. And at the manager level, the higher you got in management, the less competitive you became, because the higher your management in private industry, the bigger the bonuses and the non-salary incentives. So there was a trade-off, in other words, that an employee made. And to be honest with you, in my 9 years as commissioner, I have not lost one employee because they want to make more money. I lost employees because of career opportunities, which is limited to some extent in my field, or because they had an opportunity to become subject experts at the FDIC or some other regulatory entity. So I just want to make sure that we're not overreacting to what happened because of COVID and because of the people came to a realization that, you know, maybe there's more to life than simply work, and maybe I need to retire earlier, or I want to do something different, or the way that the COVID and the retirements impacted the market, which at a period, it was much more harder to find people than it is today. I mean, I lost 46% of my staff due to retirement pretty much. I only lost one person that was not retirement related. And I was able to fill those positions, even at the highest peak of the difficulty of finding people. So I'm not necessarily against doing studies like this, because like I say, I figure out a way to do it for my agency outside of the state government. But I also want to make sure that we are comparing. It's hard to compare apples to apples because we're not the private industry, right? And there are definitely some benefits to being a state employee that you're not going to find in private industry, including the quality of life balance. And it's not normal, except for city management like Nadeem and Hasim, that one of our employees is going to be working, and there are others, but the average employee is not going to be working more than 40 hours a week without getting compensated for it extra.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Cindy?
Yeah, I just want to say how great I think it is that you've done the study, and the success of affordable housing in Connecticut and in any of the goals that are outlined depend on the creativity and the talent of the staff. And anything, in my opinion, that we can do, even if we were higher, in my opinion, any higher than what is average, is crucial, because we need them to stay. We need them to be able to improve if they want to. And we don't want them to retire early because we haven't made it something that they want. So I totally applaud anything that we can do to make staff want to stay and deliver what we need them to deliver. So thank you for this report and your efforts, Nandini.
Thank you, Cindy. Lisa, you have your hand up.
I did, but Cindy just said it, so I'll just second what Cindy said. And I guess also, George, I would just say your points are well taken, but these are levers within our control. We can't control for everything that may or may not be part of what our staff think about, but these are levers that we can control to try and incentivize talented people to stay with us and keep doing good work. So I think it behooves us to really think hard about this. And again, I think Cindy put it well.
Thank you, Lisa. Any other comments?
Yes, I have one. I totally agree with I mean, I agree with what Lisa and Cindy mentioned, right? And because I don't want people to misunderstand what I'm saying. But on the other hand, we're not having a problem, people not finding people. I mean, look, when we had the change in the executive director, we found somebody that I think is wonderful, right? And some of the other replacements that we got, I will argue in some cases we had an improvement. And second, we're not having, I mean, this is probably my 15 years serving in this board in 2 different waves under 4 different governors, including Republicans and Democrats. And in those years, this has not been an issue where we needed to dramatically change how we do business because people are leaving us because we don't pay them enough, or they're not dedicated to their job, or they didn't realize from day one when they took the job that there's no incentive. And that does not mean that we don't look at ways to improve it. But all I'm saying is, let's make sure we reach a adequate balance between our mission, which we cannot accomplish without good employees, right, of affordable housing, then trying to find a solution for a problem that we need to address before it becomes a problem, but in my opinion, is not a real problem yet. or is not a problem that we have had a history of. That people leave us because we don't pay them enough.
Thank you, Commissioner.
And we could differ, and it doesn't mean that one opinion is better than the other. There are 4 different governors, and including 2 Republicans and 2 Democrats, which means philosophies might have been different, and approaches might have been different. And that doesn't make me any smarter than anybody else. It doesn't mean that my opinion is worth any more than anybody else, but it means that my gray hairs come from something called experience. Thank you.
Thank you. Andy?
Thank you. I appreciate everybody's comments, and the only thing I would say about the pension is anecdotally, depending on the person, the individual, their demographics, the generational differences, there could be less focus on something that you're not apt to receive for another 30 years. And as people have left the workforce and we've tried to fill positions across the authority, there's just not as much appreciation for something that maybe was there, 15 or 20 years ago. But it's anecdotal, and I don't have hard evidence necessarily. But I would like to provide a sort of a recommendation to the board at this point as to requesting your approval of the pay philosophy, your approval for us to adopt the structure that's been recommended by Korn Ferry. And we're recommending, in addition, some adjustments to salaries. So the first would be to bring individuals who are currently below the minimum of their salary range up to the minimum. So, as Miriam said, we've created these ranges, salary ranges for job groups. And so for every job, we're evaluating whether or not it's below its new minimum. And if it is, we'd like to adjust that person up to the minimum. In addition to that, we're recommending adjusting those employees who have had tenure with CHFA and have put in years of service and have satisfactorily performed their jobs, but are not necessarily where they need to be in that range. So, for example, Korn Ferry's recommendation to us is that an individual employee should take approximately 7 years to get to the midpoint of that range, and that's based on industry practices and across a variety of sectors. And so for somebody who's been in their job for 3.5 years, they should be halfway to that midpoint, provided they're performing satisfactorily. There are a number of people who are not journeying to the midpoint as they should be, and we would like to adjust their salaries as well. So taking into account both of these recommendations, we would see approximately, cost of $525,000, factoring in associated fringe benefits. We're looking at approximately $997,000. We believe we can absorb 20% of that cost in the current year budget that was approved in November, but that the rest of it would have to be something the board could see itself amending the budget for. So we're requesting an additional $800,000 to cover the remaining cost of implementing these 2 changes. With that, I respectfully cede the floor back to the Commissioner and see if there are any questions.
Can I make a motion to approve before the discussion starts?
Indeed. I'm gonna hold the vote.
Okay.
Go to executive session and then we'll come back.
Okay.
But there's any questions right now for Andy, and I thought Tim has his hand up.
Yeah, just really quickly, and I know that we're over time, but Nannity, two things. One, I would be curious, Miriam, like who our peers are, like who we compared to. I don't necessarily need to know that right now, but that would be of interest to me to understand who we actually looked at. And then secondly, Nannity, with this, $500,000 plus, does that, well, we've got a number of positions that are open right now, right? I don't know how many there are. So how does that factor into what you're asking for?
Sure. So every year we budget for a certain number of positions, and we have to be ready to deploy based on, a variety of needs. Like last year we had built for CT. And before that, we had My Home CT, and we were able to be extremely nimble, create new positions, put them into place, and launch programs, right? So in the face of uncertainty for the rest of the year, we would like to keep open budgetary authority to do that work if necessary. And that's why we're asking for an amendment to the budget that would allow us to make these adjustments over and above any authority that's available to us for new positions that may have to be created as a result of new programs or other needs.
And I'm sorry, I don't want to put you on the spot. So if you don't know, that's fine. But do we know how many positions are open right now and what that cost is, or do you not have that at your fingertips?
I do not have that at my fingertips, but I can certainly work on that.
Okay.
By that view and the board.
Thank you, Tim. Greg?
Yes, I applaud this effort. I really do. I mean, we're about to go through a tough time as federal funding's drying up, and we have to stay at the top of our game. And if leadership is proposing this, I like the way the study's done. I know this group, they're fantastic. We've had to do this recently in a couple organizations, but we have to stay competitive. If we're not careful, the focus will be on filling positions continually rather than focusing on programs. So I really think there's a lot of good in this. My question is really, you can see that with the programs and the income that we have, that we will be able to handle these increased expenses as we move forward. It seems we have a lot of creative ideas, and this is needed in order to accomplish those.
Thank you, Greg. Nandy, do you want to say anything?
Was that a question, Greg? I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was kind of like a long thing, but there was a question. And it really was, you feel comfortable that the programs are able to absorb these costs as we move forward?
Yes, I do. I think that, as a government, quasi-governmental entity, obviously we have to be, efficient and effective with every dollar that we use for our operations. But I feel very strongly that having a high-performing team and one that is compensated, in addition to, providing all of the compensatory types of benefits like engagement and autonomy and role and, other things that matter to people, but compensation matters. And I think that we will find ourselves more and more needing to fill positions that require significant amounts of expertise, knowledge, and the ability to, to deliver. And I think, given all of those considerations, I'm very comfortable.
Thank you. So we're gonna go into executive session. I would like to call on the resolution that Nandini posed. And then when we come back, since we're gonna be talking also about a resolution to compensate our CEO, so then we can do one resolution. So I would like to ask for a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Have a
Second.
All those in favor say yes.
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 Right, so, Dawn, could you please move, board members to the other room?
Yes, absolutely, Commissioner. And just a note for folks, people who are in the boardroom who are not a part of the executive session, if you could please step out. And then Heidi, I'm so sorry to do this to you while you're driving, but I just want to make sure that what I'm seeing, what I think is you is actually you. So if you could unmute yourself and just say hi to me, then I will be sure that I'm putting the right people in the room.
Hi.
Okay,
And Corn
perfect.
Ferry's coming into the executive session, right?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm sorry, is that correct, Commissioner?
Yes, Mary.
Yes. Okay, very good. So I'm going to open a breakout room right now, and everyone in the executive session should be pulled into that breakout room. You may have to accept it, but it should pull you in there.
Thank you.
I just want to remind everyone who's still in the main room here that that we are still live streaming this portion of the meeting, and that it will resume here again at the same live stream link once the executive session is complete.
Dawn, did you drop Selah?
Not on purpose, but let me find out what happened.
Oops.
She probably did not wait for the magic to happen.
Yeah, this one we actually had to choose, I think, to come
Yeah,
back
yeah.
in. She may have missed that.
Well, she's
Oh,
in
right,
the
'cause-
she's in the conference room, so she probably there may be different protocol.
Hello.
Thank you, Dawn. I'm gonna make a motion to table the two resolutions that were presented before. And,
Second.
can I have a have a second?
Well, you said you were making the motion, so I'll second it.
I'm sorry. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All right, Dawn, could you do a roll call?
Sure. Jerry Abrahams.
Aye.
Cindy Butts.
Yes.
Wendy Clark. Phil DeFranco.
Yes.
Heidi DeWeingart. Claudio Gualtieri. Timothy Hodges.
Yes.
Kathy McKinnon.
Aye.
Commissioner Mascara Bruno.
Yes.
Commissioner Perez.
Yes.
Franklin Perry. Matt Puglisi. Chelsea Ross. Sarah Sanders.
Yes.
Lisa Tepper Bates.
Yes.
Greg Ugalde.
Yes, and great work, everybody.
Vote passes unanimously.
Thank you. Motion carries. Can I have a motion to adjourn? All those in favor say yes.
Oh, Commissioner,
Aye.
We consent agenda.
Aye.
I'm sorry, could we do the consent agenda?
Consent agenda. We're in a hurry. Because some people have to go to meetings. Can I
I
have?
move approval.
Second.
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 All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, motion carries. Now adjourn.
Move.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Don't leave, stay.